Good morning and happy Monday, everyone. So far today, we have most stocks in the red, at least a little bit. It's not like anything's really tanking off, but we are definitely having a little bit of a pullback so far today. One stock that I thought there was some pretty interesting news on was DraftKings. They just came out with I guess you can say, a small collaboration with the Polygon network. Basically, DraftKings launched their DraftKings marketplace a couple months ago, where they are kind of like getting into the NFT business, and they have some pretty big names attached with that, like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and a lot of huge other names. But it seems like this deal with the Polygon network will just make it easier to transact on their marketplace. It just came out I guess you could say like 10 minutes ago or so. So that's good news. But besides that, most stocks are just slowly selling off. Tom, do you have any major stocks you're looking at heading into this week, or any interesting news you saw so far?
Yeah, the biggest thing I saw so far was I keep seeing these China stocks. The China stocks really gapped down this morning. They are kind of coming back here at open, which is nice to see with BABA coming back. But I kept seeing some articles saying that those China GDP numbers that released were disappointing, and that's not a good sign. And we can see it actually made BABA kind of gap down here. They're not down too much respectively, though, which is nice. And they are kind of coming back at open, which is awesome. But that China GDP news is going to be pretty important. People are really looking at the Chinese marketplace right now and the Chinese economy, and these types of numbers are a pretty big deal to people, especially with the Evergrande situation and everything like that still going on. So it's a pretty big thing, and hopefully BABA can hold its ground and keep going up today, along with stocks like NIO, KWEB, and stocks like that. But as we can see, NIO actually had a pretty big red candle at open.
For sure. So one China stock that's pretty green today is Baidu. I don't know if you saw that one, but they're actually up just under 3%, and that's including the pretty big sell-off they had at open. So I didn't look into this one too much, but I just saw it on my watch list right now. It looks like their shares pop on China's next antitrust move to rein Alibaba and Tencent. So I guess it's good that the government's not going after them. I just saw this news right now, but that's definitely not good news for BABA and then Tencent. And I also saw news with Baidu saying their shares are trading higher following a media report stating that Chinese officials are considering rules which would make content from various tech platforms accessible in Baidu's search engine. So it looks like they're doing fine.
Yeah, it does actually. They're actually gapping up really nicely, and we can see Tencent is actually moving pretty badly to the downside. And like you said, that's a pretty big thing that they're not going after Baidu. It's nice to see Baidu popping up, and man, that's actually amazing news in a market where every other stock in that sector is pretty much down today. So that's great to see. But just kind of getting back to DraftKings, Mike, they are really on the move this morning. It seems like this Polygon news might really be pushing them to the upside. Seems like a pretty good open so far. And it looks like Tesla is actually on the continuation after having that very nice move, I should say, on Friday. That was actually an amazing breakout they had.
For sure. And we actually have Jay saying, good morning. Any thoughts on Tesla? So Tesla's up around 2% on the day, kind of like Tom just suggested. And they have earnings, in 2 days, Tom, I believe?
Yeah, I believe it's in 2 days. Let me check on the daily chart just to make sure. Yeah, it looks like it's coming out on October 20th, so in 2 days. And it looks like we're going to be getting close to some of these resistance levels right before earnings.
All right, good stuff. So any thoughts on Tesla? Personally, I mean, with the earnings coming up, to me, it's just a total coin flip. There have been so many times in the past where people say Tesla's going to crush earnings, or they're going to do whatever. And the problem is, even if it does that, you can still lose because of, the way the options market is priced. So to me, over the next week or so, Tesla is a complete gamble given the earnings.
Yeah, definitely. It's always going to be hard to trade earnings. It's really like a big coin flip, like Mike said. We saw it even happen last week where JP Morgan reported amazing earnings, and then they had a very bad red downturn on those earnings, and then the very next day ripped right back up with the rest of the banks. And sometimes these stocks just go down on good earnings, which is just so weird. So hopefully Tesla ends up getting some good news, though, and hopefully the momentum comes in. They can get up towards that $900 resistance. that would be amazing for them. And just looking at them going forward, they have a lot of strength momentum right now. They finally broke out above that $800 area, and they're just having an explosive move to the upside.
Good stuff. So we just want to welcome everyone to the streams. To welcome George, Vicky, Santiago, Jamie, Mike, Iranical, Rick, Jay, J Trade, and Spacely. Thank you guys so much for joining today. You guys know the drill. Let us know what stocks you're watching, and Tom and I can definitely take a look at them. But Tom, what's going on with Lucid? They're up like 2%.
Yeah, they're breaking out too. I mean, the whole EV sector seems like it's doing pretty decent this morning so far. We have Lucid popping up with Tesla. NIO, unfortunately, is a China stock, but I wonder if even NIO is kind of turning around a little bit. So it's looking pretty good across the board. But yeah, Lucid's doing very well. They've had a lot of hype lately, Mike, and it looks like on the daily chart, Lucid could possibly be turning back to the upside pretty well. This looks like we're posting the third green candle here on this type of turnaround on the daily chart, and I hope that we can kind of get back up towards that resistance around $28 to $30. We had a lot of problems breaking out above that, but man, it looks like a pretty good setup here on the daily.
Yeah, not bad at all. Even Baba's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, look at that. Baba has a nice green candle. I know Baba's daily chart, Mike, has been getting a little bit scary to me. You know, they've been coming up into this like resistance area. They've been having lots of problems breaking out above $170. And it's been really hard lately with all the China news, like the GDP numbers last night and everything like that. But, you know, hey, with those articles coming out saying that the GDP numbers were negative, or at least, you know, negative, created a negative sentiment, it's really good to see Baba up this morning with that news. And even with that bad news, Mike, we even saw that China was targeting them and they're green. Like, we haven't seen them go green on bad China news like that in a long time.
You know it. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting setup, but hey, I mean, they're trying to come back today, so we'll see what happens. We have Spacely saying M is moving. So this is Macy's. They're up like 3%. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Even on the daily chart, they're in a pretty solid uptrend. So it's good to see this awesome uptrend. For me, this is only like a potential short-term play. It's just not a company I would want to be holding for the long term. Like, they've just been struggling so much, and, you know, Amazon is just really, really like taking their market share away. So it's not bad for like a short-term play, and, you know, given the I guess you could say strong momentum, it could be a good potential play just for like a week or so.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say if it could break out above this like $25 resistance area, we could see a pretty nice move. So definitely have it on the radar. And it's definitely had a lot of momentum ever since that COVID crash.
Awesome. So we have Santiago saying thoughts on the SPY. So the SPY is down a little bit right now, around 0.5% to be exact. I'm not necessarily really bullish or bearish on it. I'm just bullish on specific stocks that are beaten down a lot. But if you wanted like an analysis on the SPY, Tom, like what levels are we like channeling between?
You know, the big level right now is the $444 support / resistance. It was playing as a good support this morning. And then unfortunately, we kind of broke below it. At open, we even kind of confirmed down off of that and off of the 100 SMA. So I really hope that the market can kind of come back up. Sorry about that. I really hope the market can kind of come back up today and give us a pretty nice turnaround. But for right now, unfortunately, it looks like we're breaking that 444 support to the downside, and we're seeing lots of stocks go green today, but also lots of stocks red. We have Disney in the red, Triple M red, Facebook's red. I think Apple's even red too, or I know Nvidia is. So we definitely have a lot of stocks kind of in that red area, and it's just looking pretty scary. But I would say look at $444, and then below 444, I'm seeing the next major support at 440. I think that could end up being a pretty good channel, but I know the main channel down there, Mike, was like 427 to 436. So maybe we'll start to make another channel up here above that.
There we go. So good stuff. We have Arun saying, good morning. Thoughts on Peloton, please. So Peloton, let's take a look at it. PTON, they're down a little bit today. Honestly, it's just not really a company for me. But they do have a huge support right at $80 or so. So if we do retest that, as long as it holds, it could be a good dip buy. But really with earnings coming up, personally, I would just stay away from it because, you know, if we do break below that $80 support, that would not be good.
Yeah, definitely not good if that happens. And I really hope that Peloton ends up holding this and ends up going back up. But it's just they've had a very bad past few months, and it just seems like bad news just keeps coming out for them. But hey, I really hope they turn around, and I like them for the longer term. It's just in the short term, if they break that, I don't know how much lower they could go. I think shorting puts might be a good way to go, but even with that, I think that there's some better opportunities out there.
All right, so we have Mike saying thoughts on Palantir and Airbnb on shares for the long term. So I don't think you could go wrong with either of them. Personally, I like Palantir a little bit more. I have not looked at like the fundamentals of Airbnb. So keep that in mind. I know that when they IPO'd, they were a little bit more expensive than everyone thought that they were supposed to be. But with everything being said, they're growing a lot, which is great to see. I'm definitely not against shares with them for the long term. It just, I would have to do more research on, like what their fundamentals look like. But, I think they're both solid candidates.
Yeah, and Airbnb, like Mike said, it's going to be pretty hard. Their fundamentals are pretty important, and they're part of that type of like recovery sector as well. They're in like they're not like necessarily like a hotel business, but you know what I mean. They kind of are in a way. Like people use their houses and like rent them out to people and stuff like that. So the housing market does play a little bit of a factor here, as well as people traveling and stuff like that. So hopefully it just ends up growing as people start to get out more and more and more from COVID, and hopefully it gets better in the long term.
Alrighty. So we have Lawson saying, what's the word on Facebook? So, Tom, Facebook is in the green slightly today. What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly been coming down pretty hard from the top there. And, they had that bad news with like the whistleblower coming out, and they just had a whole bunch of like antitrust issues and stuff like that with the government. And unfortunately, that news kind of went away. It was making Facebook pretty fun to trade there for a few days whenever it was pretty volatile. But for right now, it looks like it's just kind of flat. They are actually having a pretty bad move off of this upper level that they hit at open. We can see we had a pretty explosive move up to 331, came right back down to this 328 support, and it looks like we're bouncing back up. So I would say it looks pretty good. There's a lot of momentum this morning. If you see it start to pop back up, I think it could have a nice run back up today, possibly, but I would just be really careful with it in the short term. Lots of whistleblower stuff, lots of stuff like that. If you want to do some quick trades, I think it could definitely be worth it. I also feel like longer term plays could work out here, but I'd be really careful with like the short term, just with all that negative like whistleblower stuff / trust issues / just everything going on with Congress with them.
Alrighty. Then Andrew said, so what does Palantir do exactly? So they focus on like data and then artificial intelligence. Basically, they make analyzing data a lot easier. And as we all know, artificial intelligence is an industry that is growing rapidly. For the most part, like everything we use nowadays, like related to technology, uses AI or machine learning in one way or another. And it's just like an industry that's growing so much. And it's an industry that I believe will continue to grow exponentially over the next decade or so. Everything from like, I believe even like certain refrigerators to, of course, computers use artificial intelligence. So it's all over the place. And they're a company that specializes in AI and then big data and then analytics and stuff like that. So overall, they've definitely been struggling a little bit over like the past couple months or so. Like, it's not that they're crashing, they're just not exploding.
Yeah, and Mike, what are some of the bigger AI stocks like Datadog, like DDOG?
Yeah, and then like I know like SNOW is like one of their competitors as well. This is Snowflake, and they've been uptrending pretty well. So it's hard to say because there's just so many AI stocks. Like you could even say Nvidia. You know what I mean? So like there's just so many stocks out there that in one way or another are involved in AI.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was just pointing those stocks out because we can look at stocks like Nvidia, Snowflake, and stocks like that, and it shows you how much potential some of these AI stocks really have. Like Palantir's still like at the beginning, of their phase. Like they haven't even been on the market too long. So just looking at it, I think that they have a lot of potential for the long term. In the short term, it's going to be hard to trade them. Of course, they're very up and down, but I love them for the long term. Like Mike said, that sector isn't going anywhere in the long term, and it's really used for everything. I mean, like he said, even your refrigerator, you would never think that, but you go and get a water out of your refrigerator and, your fridge is using AI to regulate temperatures and stuff in there. So there's lots of stuff going on. And it's definitely a sector that's not going anywhere. But I just want to point that out because Palantir is only trading at like $24 a share. I know a lot of it matters on market cap and stuff like that, but I feel like with the way Nvidia and lots of these stocks like Snowflake, DDOG, stocks like that have grown. Like, look, just a few years ago, DDOG was $27 a share. Now they're 160 a share. And I'm not saying Palantir is going to have this type of movement, but man, with the sector there, and I would not be surprised over the next like 5 years to see him do very well.
For sure. So yeah, it's definitely a good sector to be in, whether it's with Palantir or Snowflake or whatever. AI is growing at a crazy rate, so just keep that in mind for sure. And then George said CRWD too, CrowdStrike. Yeah, so that's definitely another good one to keep in mind. That one's been uptrending pretty good as well. And then we have Rick saying, look at FCEL. So I saw this one was actually really popping off. They're up like 11% on the day.
Man, this stock's actually really bouncing well off the 500 SMA down there and off that support around like $5.75. That's actually a really nice bounce. And like you said, very nice breakout today as well. That's a very nice move up 11%. And it's just continuing to extend up. So hopefully it continues up for the rest of today. But I hope the top is not 833. I'd like to see it go even higher, but the chances of it popping more than like 12% are probably pretty low.
All right, Iranical said, did you see AMD? So not until now. I mean, they're up 1% and they're looking pretty good so far. What's the next resistance, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, man, the next one's actually coming up pretty soon around 114.50 to 115. Let's look on the 90-day 15-minute chart here. Yeah, definitely like right around like 114 to 114.50. I'd say right between there is going to be the next resistance. And we're getting pretty close. We could see we had a pretty big move up so far this morning up towards 114. And so far we have a little bit of a pullback off of that. But man, AMD has just been on fire, Mike, for the past couple of weeks. They just keep going to the upside. And look at this on the daily chart. Like you can just see how much explosive movement they've had to the upside since their big pullback. And it's just really been recovering, and I would not be surprised if we broke out above maybe like that 114.50 level, maybe like, maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow or later in the week. And they do have earnings coming up. So just keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit risky as we head into that, but it's still around like 8 days away.
Alrighty. And then we have Mike saying UPST is finally taking a dip. Well, at least for now it is. Wow, 8%. I didn't even realize it was that much. Well, yeah, it's actually pretty big. So if it's down 8% on the day, we're just above that 350 support. So yeah, it's definitely taking a little bit of a hit. IV starting to rise a little bit. So definitely keep this one on your radar. And Tom, I wonder if this is finally going to be the top.
I'm really wondering because that was a key like psychological level as well. It was the $400 resistance, and we just came pretty much straight down off of that. We ran up to 401 and just had that bad move back down. So I don't know. I really think it might be the top, Mike, and I'd hate to call it prematurely, but I could really see it possibly moving down off of here for the next few days. And this is a pretty bad move to the downside. Like you said, down 7.3, 7.4% already. Like that's pretty bad. And just looking at it, it definitely looks like it has the potential to fall off to the downside. But, we've seen this time and time again with UPST. They definitely have had lots of red days mixed in on the way up, and then they ended up recovering right back. So we'll have to see, but I think it could end up being a multi-day move down.
All right. And then we have Sir saying, what's good, family? Let's win. Let's go. So thanks for joining today's stream. Looking at a couple different stocks so far today, Tom, it looks like the banks are doing pretty well. Like if you look at JP Morgan or even Goldman, they're trending up pretty strongly. Like JP Morgan's up 1%, and even on that daily chart, like we're getting pretty close to that all-time high again.
Yeah, we are. I would not be surprised if we're retesting that pretty soon. And man, the banks have been moving up on the news with rates rising. I mean, banks are loving this news right now, Mike. It's a pretty awesome thing to hear, actually. And even like with Powell's statements and stuff, banks are moving well off of those. So I really like them for the next like month or two. It's hard to trade them as they're like breaking out to highs like JP Morgan is, but it's just I really like the sector right now. Lots of momentum, and I feel like there's lots of potential for day trades with these stocks. They don't move too much, but if you catch them at the right time, it could definitely be a nice runner.
All right, welcome Vicky to the stream. Thanks for joining. Another stock that I have my eyes on, Tom, is Zoom. They've been like slowly recovering over like the past week or so. Nothing crazy, but it's nice to see that bounce off of 250. Honestly, I don't expect this one to like explode back up to like 330 or anything within like the next couple weeks or so, but it is good to at least finally start to see like a change in momentum, because it's been selling off pretty hard for what, the past month or so.
It really has, man. They had that bad move to the downside. It was just not a good earnings report for them, unfortunately. And I feel like it does look pretty good off that 250 support, though. There's definitely lots of momentum coming back. And I really like it on the daily for shares right now. I think for shares, it's a really good time to go, or maybe for cash secured puts, or yeah, just selling cash secured puts. But I think it's just a really good way right now. It's a good long-term stock, and it's at a good long-term level, which is nice. But it has been getting beaten down. So it's hard for me to say in that sense, but I really feel like Zoom's not going anywhere. And, one thing that I really love with Zoom, Mike, is their earnings reports. They have great earnings. Their EPS is always growing, which is nice. We can see they had a 1.32 EPS, 1.36, 1.22 before that. And they're always beating the estimates, and they always have decent revenue. So I would think that they could end up doing pretty well over the next few months, especially over the next few years.
Alrighty. And then we have Vicky asking for levels on Nvidia, please. So Nvidia is doing pretty well. What are some of the levels to look out for?
I actually have a lot of levels coming up with Nvidia, and we just broke out above this 220 resistance that I had down on the chart. I don't know how long ago that was posted, but 220 definitely was a pretty good level to look at, and we're breaking out above that, which is awesome to see. After that, I'm seeing a pretty nice move up to 224. I don't see too much resistance in between 220 and 224. So I feel like that could be a pretty good move there. And that's all I would really look at. There is another support to the downside around 215 if you want to watch that. But I would really look at like the 224 resistance up there at the top since we broke out above 220.
All right. And then what do you have for support?
For support, I would definitely look at like 215 down here at the bottom. But like I said, we just broke 220. So you could almost use 220 as support now. But I would definitely still look at more of like 215 or maybe the low of today around like 216, but 215 is definitely held up better.
Alrighty, so hopefully that helps, Vicky. George said, not sure if you've seen this gap down on Redfin. So yeah, it's down 4%. It sucks to see. I was looking at it earlier today. There's no like major news on it that I'm seeing, at least on TD Ameritrade, but yeah, it's definitely gapping down relatively hard. I mean, like, it's not like tanking, but it's just been consolidating a lot over the past couple months. So I'm definitely looking for a pop back up, and I think the ideal move with this one is either shares or just some short puts. Leaps can be okay with it, but it's just like you just have to be careful with how you select them because the IV is like 63%, and it's like kind of mid-range right now. Plus, they have earnings coming up soon too, so it's just like it would just be safer for like shares or short puts.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of like Zoom, Mike. Like they just keep getting beaten down on the daily chart, but it's like you feel like at some point it's going to recover and go back up. But the question is when, and it might take a few months, but I still think it's a pretty decent setup, and they're in a pretty decent sector. So it's not like Redfin is just going to like crash and burn or just go anywhere. They're definitely like not a pump and dump, which is awesome. So I hope that they end up going back up in the longer term, and in the short term, they might have these little downward moves, especially with like the housing market kind of maybe coming down from those highs, but we'll just have to see what ends up happening. I like them for the long term.
All right, so we have Brian saying, good morning, brothers. What are your thoughts on Bark, and what are the levels? So BARK, I have never, ever heard of this company before. Their chart looks pretty bad. Here, Tom, I'm going to do a little bit of research about this company. In the meantime, can you show us some of the support and resistance levels?
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, this stock's really been going down lately, and I see a decent support down here right around the $6 area. I'm really curious to see if this is a tree company or if it's a dog company, but I'm really curious to see. I like the support at $6. Really crazy setup here in the long term. Unfortunately, they keep going down. Good support at $6. If they start to go up, I'm seeing the next resistance right around $6.90 to $7, and then above that, of course, $8. I think $8 might be the more of the major level there. So if we start to pop up off of $6, definitely eye up $8. But I'll be honest, it's just been looking pretty bad. They keep breaking to new lows, and if we break below $6, it might change the whole landscape of the trade. So definitely be careful with it. And the implied volatility is going through the roof.
Yeah, so they're definitely a dog company. It looks like they have like a couple different boxes where it's like a monthly subscription of like different toys, like treats and things like that. Like they have a couple different
That
products,
sounds
but
cool.
that's what I'm seeing after scrolling on their website right now, like a monthly like care package of like food and stuff like that. So it seems very interesting. I've never heard of them before, but their stock is definitely struggling. I'm not sure how their fundamentals look. I would assume they're pretty bad given the chart, but either way, I'll definitely look into this company more though. But it definitely looks a little rough.
Yeah, who knows? I might buy a box for my dog just to, just to see what it's like, because
Yeah,
that sounds like a pretty cool thing. But
for sure.
yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Unfortunately, the stock's been going down pretty hard, Mike, and I feel like it, like you said, it's like you said, like once you gave me the background, it sounds like a pretty decent company, but fundamentals really speak for themselves.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. George said Z has also had the same gap down. So this is Zillow, which is one of Redfin's competitors, and yeah, they are getting smacked. They're down 11%. I mean, that's pretty brutal. Let me look into this because like Redfin's only down 4.7, Zillow's down like 11.2. Let me see. So it looks like there's news with Zillow saying Zillow pauses home buying due to backlogs and capacity constraints. So that's not good. I know their stock was popping up because they were like getting more into that like home buying programs, but it looks like they're stopping that. So oh wow, they stopped it for the rest of the year. So that's not good. I don't think Redfin had any news like that, but yeah, it's definitely not good for Zillow.
Yeah, maybe not good, but who knows? Maybe it's like a blessing in disguise. Maybe the
True.
housing market will come down or something and they'll be able to scoop things up cheaper. But either way, definitely not good news. This is a bad gap to the downside. Anytime like a real estate slash housing company just, totally quits buying, that's a pretty bad sign. So I'm not surprised to see them down.
For sure. All right, so looking across the board, Tom, there's not really any major momentum with anything. If we look at the SPY, it's trying to come back up, but then again, there's just like no major momentum with anything. I'm looking at a couple different scanners, and the only thing I'm seeing that's like really like starting to move is Boeing to the downside, which sucks to see, and they're even only down 1%. So still, like there's nothing like moving with a ton of momentum.
Yeah, that does suck to see that Boeing's moving down like that. And who knows, we might be going down to retest that 210 support over the next couple days. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but looks like we're getting pretty close. I wonder how Lucid's doing. I know they were doing very well earlier, and yeah, it looks like they're actually turning back up. I know they were coming back to the downside a few minutes ago, but looks like over the past couple minutes, they had a pretty explosive move back from 25 back up to 25.25. So we'll have to see what happens. It doesn't look like it's moving necessarily too much. We're only up like 4.7%, but hey, if we can break out above that high at 23.30 or 25.37, I think we could see a pretty nice intraday move. And it does look like it's moving up a little bit. And Mike, one of your I should just say like one of your favorite stocks is Enphase, and they're actually having a pretty nice move back up today as well. Yeah, look at that on the daily. It looks like they're actually breaking out above that like 175 resistance, and they actually look pretty decent.
Yeah, not bad at all. The solar industry is another sector that I believe will explode over the next decade or so, and it's great to see them popping off. So love to see that. And then Brian said, "How are Wish levels looking?" And to be honest, in my opinion, still pretty bad. I do not like this company. Honestly, I feel like there's much better deals out there, like Corsair, Palantir, DraftKings, Redfin, RUN. Like there's so many good deals in the market right now where personally I just wouldn't be playing like these like stocks like Wish. But to answer your question, there is a support like around like $4.60, and then I see a little bit of resistance right around like $5.50. Tom, I don't know if you see like any extra levels or if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a pretty big resistance right there around that $6 area. If we could break out above that, it looks like the next major one's going to be like 750, but it's really hard to say. They're pretty low and they keep breaking down to new lows, which sucks to seize, but hopefully that support at 460 ends up holding up for them. I think it might. It's just Wish is going to be a really hard one to trade. it almost reminds me of that chart like BARK from earlier, Bark. They just keep going down, and unfortunately, we just keep breaking lows with them. And I know people love the company, but if they just keep breaking lows, I wouldn't keep chasing them. I don't think. Yeah, it does really look like BARK actually. They both like really have just been going down a lot, and Wish has honestly even been falling even more, which is crazy.
Yep. All right. So we have G saying, what about INDI? So let's take a look. INDI, I have not looked at this one. Yeah, it says they're a semiconductor stock. So, I would initially think that's good, but I don't really know anything about them. But it looks like they're just like channeling between like $12.70 and I guess you can say like $8 or so, maybe like $8.50. I just don't really know anything about them, so I'm just going to stay neutral.
Yeah, me too. And the main thing I would say is just that with everything going on in the whole semiconductor industry, lots of chip shortages and stuff like that going on. So maybe be careful with INDI in the short term. It does look like they are kind of coming back down to the downside too. So just be a little careful with those chip shortages and stuff. But, this sector should be pretty good for the long term. It's just, I don't know their fundamentals either or anything they do or hold.
Alrighty. Jay said, any thoughts on KO? So Coca-Cola, obviously we don't expect like any crazy growth out of them. It's just, in my opinion, it's just like better to buy like Coca-Cola shares rather than have the money sitting in a bank account. It just depends on your risk tolerance, but really, I mean, they're popping up pretty well over like the past year or two, which is good. But then again, like I don't really expect any crazy growth out of them. I'm not really expecting like any big uptrend or even downtrend anytime soon. It's just personally, just I'm expecting consolidation.
Yeah, I could see that too. It's going to be really hard to say in the short term. It's just Coca-Cola has been really consolidating, like you said, and they don't really move too much. And I feel like a lot of it's going to have to do with how they end up doing over this winter, of course. I know that it might get kind of crazy again. I don't know what's happening. I know that lots of people are talking about like possible like the Delta variant getting worse and stuff like that. I really hope not because I'm honestly just tired of it all. But looking at it, I think Coca-Cola could end up going up, but it kind of looks like it's turning off to the downside right now, Mike. And I'll be honest, we're bouncing off of that like $55 resistance, and until we break back above 55, I might think we might end up going down in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, who knows with this one? I just think the best way to go is just some short puts. Like in the worst case
Yeah.
scenario, you see have to buy shares at a relatively low price, and you're getting paid to do so. So just given the like that it's not trending, and given that there's just like it just doesn't really move. I feel like just the best way to go is just a short put option because, like I said, in the worst case scenario, you're just buying shares low. But with that being said, we have one stock that's starting to pop off, Tom, and that is SOFI. So SoFi, they're up like 2.5%, and over like the past week or two, they've been on a pretty strong uptrend.
Yeah, this setup actually looks pretty good, Mike, and it almost reminds me of like AFRM on their way up. We can see how they had these very nice green candles, lots of nice momentum to the upside. I think SOFI is kind of like in those beginning stages of maybe getting some of that awesome momentum. If we see a nice breakout up above $20 a share, definitely watch SOFI. I think it has a lot of potential to go up, and a lot of people have been hyping this one up, and it's actually about to break that high right now. So we just broke out. And if we break 20, I think we could see a really good run out of this one. Definitely watch it, guys. I think it's pretty awesome. And looking at the daily, bouncing really good off these bottom supports, like at $14, and just very nice explosive moves up. I wish we could see like these stocks like Palantir moving like this, but hey, I'll take it with Sofi.
All right, and then Tom, we can't forget about Plug. They've been exploding over the past couple weeks too, and they're having a pretty good day.
They are. It actually looks almost like the same setup. They're getting a nice green candle coming back into them as well. And I could see them recovering up at least maybe to the high of that candle there, right around $34. Let's look at the 15-minute chart. Yeah, I could see it coming back up maybe to $34 or $35 on this recovery. It seems pretty good. There is a little bit of resistance I'm seeing intraday around $33, but really nice moves back, Mike. And these EV / clean energy plays are doing very well today, recovering up nicely, and hopefully they keep moving up like last week.
Here we go. So looking at everything, like Tom, do you see like any like major movers today, or like any, I don't know, any interesting setups, any interesting catalysts, or anything like that?
I know that some of my favorite plays today have been like AMD so far. DraftKings, stuff like that has been doing very good. I know that it's been pretty hard in the short term to trade some of these like semiconductor stocks and stuff like that, but I think DraftKings can do pretty well. Unfortunately, I thought that China GDP information would really hurt some of these Chinese stocks, and Baba's just kind of not really doing anything today. So it's a lot better than going down, and I think it's really good that the China stocks are holding their ground. I think that's amazing news because I think a lot of people were expecting this to go down, but there's not really too many huge catalysts that I'm seeing right now. I know that there's a lot of earnings coming up later in the week. Maybe I can get that earnings whispers chart up, but I know that there's lots of interesting stuff with like Netflix going on right now. I know that they've been moving very well, and I think they have earnings actually coming up later this week. It looks like they're going to have them, on tomorrow actually. So I'll really have my eyes on Netflix. I know that they had that Squid Games news going on, and I really hope that it helps Netflix get a nice pop with earnings, but we'll just have to see. It's going to be really 50-50. And I'm not sure that, obviously I'm not going to play the earnings, but it's going to be just really, really interesting to see.
Did you end up finishing Squid Game?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't even watch any of the episodes. I actually watched like a lot of like YouTube videos just showing me like the main parts of the episodes, like the parts where everyone would like get shot by that cat and stuff.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's a pretty good series overall, but yeah, it's definitely going viral, and it looks like it definitely helped Netflix stock, and I'm curious to see how their earnings report goes given the, explosion. My first thought would be that it's priced in, like, unless, like, they just report, like, crazy earnings, then it could pop up, but I feel like most of the time when there's, like, highly anticipated events, whether it be, like, Tesla AI Day or Tesla Battery Day or earnings or whatever event that like has a bunch of hype with it, I feel like most of the time it's already priced in, and that's just my opinion. But we'll definitely know by tomorrow. But
yeah, I could see that too, though. I mean, it's been really moving crazy, and a lot of times we see stocks drop on news like that.
yeah,
So I would not be surprised to see it go down. We just saw J.P. Morgan fall on even good earnings last week.
exactly. So definitely keep that in mind. Vicky's saying hit the like, guys. So yeah, if you guys like the stream, it would help us out so much if you hit that like button. Tom and I would greatly appreciate it. And then she also said SOFI levels after $20, please.
Yep. So after $20, I would really look at like SOFI. It's hard to say because it was on the daily and they posted some really big candles there. Definitely like right around $21 to $22. Let me go kind of like on the 180-day 4-hour chart to kind of get a little better of a view. Yeah, I would say right around $21 would be the next one, Vicky. It seems like it's just kind of stepping up in these even dollar amounts. Like the next one would honestly be right around $22 where a lot of those stocks are at. But I would say like the main level to look at, Vicky, up there is going to be right around 22. There is some resistance coming up around 21, but I think the main one up there is more of around 22, like I said. So definitely eye up both. I think it could possibly touch both of them in the short term. And I think that a good support's going to be $18. Since we passed above that, it's been looking like a pretty good bottom level there.
Alrighty, good stuff. And then George said some crazy action at OPEN too, so open. While Z and Redfin move to the downside, open goes up. So looking at open really quickly, we can see that it is up 3%, which is great to see. I've actually been seeing a lot of smart money flow into this one from like, a month or two ago. So surprise, it's exploding to the upside. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting observation. And I've been definitely watching this one a lot lately. So either way, it's on a strong uptrend, and I'm definitely going to continue to watch it.
Yeah, and I've been hearing some pretty good stuff about like the housing market, like lots of stuff with possible like recoveries, bounce backs. I'm seeing like lots of good news on CNBC every day. Like today, I even see a good article. Home builder sentiment bounces back despite ongoing supply chain problems. And, that sounds pretty good. It sounds like a good piece of news, at least. I kind of brought it up here. It's just good news. Anytime the building news can get better, it'll always help these type of like housing companies, especially like Open, Redfin, stocks like that. So I think it'll be pretty good, especially if the housing sector starts to like pop off again or get more popular. I think over the past few months, Mike, I don't know if you've kind of seen this too, but like a lot of home builders have been starting up again. Like I know for a while people were like waiting for the lumber prices and steel prices to get a lot lower. But I don't know about you, but I've been seeing a lot of houses by me start to get ramped up again.
Yeah, I saw that. It's just the problem is there's just like shortages with everything, It's
Yeah.
like even though like lumber prices came down from their high, like there's shortages with, like everything. Like Tom, I know we were talking a little bit last night about even shortages like at like the grocery store, So it's just I feel like even though prices came down and it's good to see builders kind of get back to normal. I feel like it's going to take a little bit until we could actually see the housing market calm down a little bit because rates are still relatively low. So I feel like the housing market will be totally fine until rates rise, and then at the same time we have like more supply on the market because like we saw over the past year or two. When you combine low rates plus record low supply, that just creates explosive movement.
Yeah, it really does. And it's going to be such an interesting next like couple of years, like I know that we've already been through a couple of years of COVID, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this affects the housing market even more. And I'll be really interested to see how it ends up kind of going, because I know lots of times in the past, whenever the housing market popped off like this, it eventually like hit a wall and then came crashing down after that. And I'm really hoping that's not the case this time. Hopefully they learn some lessons, but I'm really hoping that the housing market kind of stays on the right track here and keeps going pretty well. And I really just hope that a lot of these companies like Open and these stocks like Redfin, Zillow, stocks like that can kind of get back up there. I know Redfin, unfortunately, just keeps getting beaten down, but I feel like it's at such good longer term levels. Like if you just grab shares here and held them for the next few years, or if you sold some puts, it's almost like you couldn't go wrong with it.
Alrighty, yeah, I'm with you. All right, so looking at everything else, we do have XPEV starting to pop off a little bit. This is another EV company. I feel like we were hearing a bunch about like these types of stocks like XPEV and then LI when like NEO was going crazy, but over the past couple months they've just been consolidating. But I feel like with everything being said, Tom, there's just a lot of good opportunities out there, whether it be NEO, Palantir, Corsair. Like I know we talk about this basically every day, but I feel like now's like a really good time to buy the dip on a lot of different stocks out there.
Yeah, it really is, I think. And, it's hard to do it because a lot of times you're looking at stocks and they might be going down at that time. And you're like, man, it's just so hard to buy. But you just have to like trust your gut sometimes. And whenever you look at stuff like the S&P 500, generally the market's always going to go back in the longer term. So it should end up doing pretty good as long as you pick up some good companies. Obviously, be really careful. Like if you're going out there and buying stuff like Wish or like BARK, obviously that could have a pretty negative effect on your long-term portfolio if they end up breaking support and going down and stuff like that. But I feel like the awesome ones, like you mentioned, like Redfin, Corsair, Zillow, just stocks like that are down there at supports could end up being pretty good. And I really like it, but it's hard to trust your gut and pick up shares. But I'm telling you guys, like if you guys just start a long-term portfolio, maybe start selling some puts in there, just grab some shares. You don't have to grab like hundreds of shares at a time. Like if you get paid this week, maybe just take a few $100s and go buy a few shares of different stuff, but just do it every week, get those shares accumulated. And then for the long term, you'll be pretty set.
There we go. And looking at Coinbase, I know this is a little bit off topic, but Coinbase is up like 3.5%. They're kind of exploding. Like when you look at that like chart over the past couple weeks. And of course, Bitcoin prices are through the roof. So I'm sure that's bringing in a lot of buyers and sellers, especially on Coinbase, because we know that companies like Coinbase and even Robinhood really profit when there's more like trading activity going on.
Yeah, you're right. They really will profit pretty well. And if crypto starts to fly up or anything like that, I could see it doing pretty well. And let's see how Bitcoin's moving. And it looks like Bitcoin's actually popping off today again. I know they had a pretty nice past couple of weeks, as we can see on the chart here. Bitcoin's pretty much went straight up. I know we were like right around that 40,000 mark. It looks like we were back on like September 22nd. We were touching 40,000. Now we're all the way up to 62,000 in just like 18 trading days, maybe 20 days. So that's pretty crazy to see, actually. And just the overall, like, I should say, like the overall crypto market's really recovering up nicely, Mike. And it's making Coinbase, and I feel like a lot of those other types of stocks really fly. And I don't know about you, Mike, but Coinbase was looking pretty promising down here around these lows. I know Hunter was calling out some pretty good cash secure put plays in the Discord, and I know that's doing pretty well right now with Coinbase popping off.
There we go. Love to see that. So then we have Apex saying, what about Palantir? So let's take a look at it. PLTR, they're up just under 1% on the day. They were running up pretty well to start the day, but they've been consolidating for months now, like there's just like no momentum to the upside or the downside, where I love them for the long term. I love the sector that they're in, but they just need some like momentum with them because they've just been like not doing anything.
Yeah, they really do. It sucks to see that they just are failing to break out. And if they could break out above 25, I think it would be awesome and they'd have a pretty explosive move up. But until they break out, I don't think I'll look at them too hard, but I love the company. Definitely I'll look at it for the long term. Just in the short term, I don't think I'd play it till we pass above one of these upper resistances coming up. I would say the main level I'd look at is make it pass above like 2470.
Sounds good. So, Tom, do you have any last minute stocks, options, or anything you are watching for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I'm actually really eyeing up some of these cruise line stocks. It's unfortunately they're really falling off to the downside, like CCL, Boeing, stocks like that. They had a lot of red momentum today. They are coming back a little bit right now, but I'll really be eyeing up this whole sector. As these stocks start to go down, I'm really going to be looking for a nice support level for them to bounce off of if they can, if they bounce, of course. So like with CCL here, they have a big support at $20. We're around $3 away from that. So I'll definitely be eyeing that up later this week. And I'm also eyeing up some of these chip stocks that just continue to fall down, like MU. MU had a pretty bad move down last week, and it looks like they had a pretty bad move down this morning. They are recovering up a little bit right now, but in pre-market and at open, they had a pretty bad move down. And I'll really be watching for this stock to possibly break support again. Whenever they broke support last week, they had a really bad move. I know that these stocks have really been falling down a lot lately, so maybe watch for it to break support again this week, or maybe watch for it to bounce, because if we start to get a nice bounce back up, it could end up playing well to the upside, but really eye up that support around like $66, $65.
There we go. So thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. We have a good amount of stocks moving, which is great to see. Even Mara's starting to pop off as Bitcoin pops. So definitely lots of action today. Again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.